Hi there, welcome to Commodities. Let's check in on the energy complex first. Now, oil has had a rough week. You'll remember it hit the lowest in 4.5 years just a couple of days ago. We have seen some strength in crude today, though, tied to a perception of geopolitical risk in Venezuela in particular. The prospect of new military attacks, U.S. military attacks on Venezuela, have brought worries about supply. It's not a huge producer, less than 1% of world output, or maybe 1%. But in the oil market, it's so geared to having the right type of oil in the right place at the right time that any disruption could ripple through the entire global market. And in particular, of course, that Venezuelan heavy oil is important for U.S. refineries on the Gulf. President Donald Trump this week ordering a blockade of sanctioned oil tankers docking in the Latin American country. But he's been silent since on what the next moves will be. Chevron, meanwhile, though, is moving about 1 million barrels a day out of Venezuela. Of course, that trade is not sanctioned. And meanwhile, there's talk of yet more U.S. sanctions on big Russian energy companies. No real sign of progress lately in obtaining a ceasefire in the Ukraine war. And let's have a look now at the metals. Copper hit a record high last week in London. It's pretty close to that now. That latest interest rate cut by the U.S. Federal Reserve, seen as good for industrial stocks, good for industrial investment. So futures holding above $11,700 US a ton in London. But we got that pretty slow increase in U.S. inflation in November, and that strengthens the case for more possible rate cuts by the Fed. Some other commodity-related stories we are watching. A jump in cannabis stocks today, including Tilray. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my goodness. That's interesting. They've now turned down. Let's put up an intraday price chart for Canopy Growth, maybe, weed. Because they did surge earlier after President Trump signed an order easing federal restrictions on cannabis. So you can see they were up, then they turned down, and now dropping. This eases medical research on marijuana, for example, and CBD. The plan here is just to classify cannabis in the same category as some painkillers, but they're not legalizing the drug. Tilray says it will launch a medical cannabis business in the United States. But of course, we've seen this movie before. There have been moves towards decriminalization or even legalization at the federal level talked about in the United States, and then nothing really happened. So it looks like investors are just having second thoughts about the surge in the stocks. But some of those, weed and Tilray, they had almost doubled in the past week on the prospects of laxer regulation. The federal government has signed a deal with Ontario to remove duplication in environmental assessments. The Prime Minister and Ontario Premier Doug Ford signed this deal to accelerate major projects, bringing them under a, quote, one project, one review approach. The plan here is to help unlock the so-called Ring of Fire, that minerals-rich region in northern Ontario. Shares in Trump Media and Technology sharply higher, up almost 40%. That's after the company said it will be merging with an outfit called TAE Technologies, a private nuclear fusion developer, in an all-stock deal that's being valued at more than $6 billion US. This would create possibly the first publicly traded nuclear fusion company, or one of the first anyway. Shareholders in TAE and Trump Media will each own roughly 50% of the combined firm. And Japan Petroleum Exploration will buy U.S. oil and gas assets for $1.3 billion US. JAPEX is partially owned by the Japanese government. It says the projects in Colorado and Wyoming produce about 35,000 barrels a day, with a goal of getting to 50,000 by the end of the decade. It's the latest move by Japan to boost investments in the U.S. The Prime Minister says this country probably won't reach a near-term deal with the U.S. to cut American tariffs on sectors such as steel and aluminum. And the talks are likely to be rolled into next year's review of CUSMA, the broad North American trade agreement. Let's get more from Bloomberg's Vancouver bureau chief, Thomas Seal. Thomas, great to see you. So it looks like no relief from those tariffs in the near term anyway.
Yes, this is the Prime Minister doing a bit of expectations management, I suppose, after he built expectations up earlier in the year for reaching a deal back in July. So we have this sort of suspended animation. This is the first update we've got really for a while on the record from the Prime Minister. Yeah, he was saying that it's going to roll into CUSMA talks at this point next year. And earlier this week, we saw an update from the US Trade Representative sort of itemizing some of the things that the US would like to see addressed, basically irritants that they would like removed from their point of view from Canada and from Mexico in these negotiations.
Once again, the US went through its ritual denunciation of Canada's dairy protectionism, and both Premier Ford and the Prime Minister went through their own ritual promise to stand by dairy farmers and maintain high prices for dairy products in this country.
Yes, that totemic issue is not going away for either side. So we'll see if there is any nuance or negotiation that can happen there. I would say something that seems to be swelling in importance between probably the last USMCA initial negotiation and now is the digital economy, the tech companies, the media companies in the US really sort of flexing their power in some of the rulemaking. So that made up 2 or 3 complaints from the US side. Canada's online streaming bill, Online News Act, they're described as discriminatory in the US Trade Representative's remarks.
Yeah, thanks for reminding us. Of course, Carney backed down on the digital services tax on the internet giants, but they're still Canada's sticking with that streaming rule, which would do things like mandate Canadian content.
Yes, and try and get the streamers, which are, almost all Californian, to pay for it.
Yeah, Thomas, before we go, I should remind myself, we often hear, dairy's very expensive in this country. Although the very informal research I've done is that it's not necessarily that much more expensive than the US or Europe. But it's always hard to compare markets. If you're in a wealthy place like Massachusetts, maybe prices are higher.
And I think there's a question around stability. I mean, we saw the US egg prices spike months ago, and I don't believe they did so, north of the border. So these things can change very quickly.
That's interesting. Yeah, thanks for reminding us. It's the stability thing as well. That is Bloomberg's Vancouver bureau chief, Thomas Seal. As I say, the limited research I've done indicates that maybe dairy in Canada is not that out of line with world prices. Okay, copper near record highs, and this shortage in the market because of supply snafus persists. We'll be right back. Well, let's talk copper. You can see it's down a little bit today, but in London, it's near a record high. The prospect of copper tariffs has distorted the US market. It turned out this summer that Trump wasn't actually putting a tariff on raw copper. Let's get more from Sam Crittenden, mining analyst at RBC Capital Markets. Sam, great to see you, and thanks for joining us.
Hello.
Just remind us, normally copper mines, they're such demanding, huge-scale enterprises. There's going to be technical problems, but this year has been particularly marked.
Definitely. So in a typical year, you expect to see about 5% of production kind of not reach its full capacity. This year, we're tracking closer to 7%, and that was accentuated by the issue that Freeport had at their large Grasberg mine in Indonesia back in September. That's almost 4% of global supply. They had an unfortunate mud rush into the block cave there. That follows Ivanhoe having issues, seismic issues at their Kamoa-Kakula mine back in May. Codelco's El Teniente had some issues throughout the summer. And then on top of a number of slower than expected ramp-ups, that's really kind of underpinned some of these supply disruptions that we've had so far this year.
Can you just remind us of the position with U.S. tariffs? If I'm right, this summer, the U.S. administration did not put tariffs on raw copper, but they did put a big 50% levy on imports of semi-finished copper products, like copper pipes, for example.
Yeah, I'm having a bit of deja vu because I think I was on this program back before the tariff decision back in July. And so, as you say, they decided they weren't going to put tariffs on refined copper. And the expectation was that maybe some of that metal that had been imported would leave the U.S. However, in that, it was almost kind of a footnote that they would reassess the tariff situation next June. And so you could be looking at potential tariffs starting in 2027. And so all of that metal that went into the U.S. has stayed there. Basically about 500,000 tons flowed into the U.S. year to date, which is 2 or 3% of global demand, and so pretty meaningful. And that hasn't left. That's sticky, that's sitting in exchanges, and that's unlikely to change until you get further clarity. And we've seen that accelerate again here, where you're still seeing metal flow into the U.S., and then that leaves other exchanges, other markets tight of copper.
That's interesting. So the copper is sitting there, and is that? Did you say that's in anticipation of Trump possibly putting extra tariffs on the metal?
That's the thought. I mean, obviously, no one knows for sure, but if there were to be a tariff announced middle of next year and implemented in 2027, if you're holding that metal within the U.S., you could potentially sell it for a premium for what you could sell it elsewhere. And so that's why that metal hasn't really left. It's why it's still sitting there.
Will this data build out in America, and on paper it's going to be huge, will that materially increase demand for copper?
It certainly could. I mean, there's just been such a massive push towards AI data centers, and that CapEx is real. It's happening now. It is very copper intensive. I mean, do we see it in the demand numbers now? Maybe not necessarily, but it certainly is underpinning demand in sort of new energy forms, and will be a growing source of demand going forward. There's no question. I mean, there's debate around what the ultimate scale could be, but it certainly can be quite large and quite meaningful in the copper demand space.
I think I picked the wrong career. I should have become an electrical engineer. You can name your... I think I heard some experts in the field are getting $500,000 a year now.
Yeah, no kidding.
You have some copper suggestions for it when it comes to stocks, including Capstone. They're in pretty stable jurisdictions such as Chile and the U.S.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the big appeals for Capstone, and so the bulk of their value is in Chile and the U.S. This company has the potential to essentially double their copper production over the next 5 years. They're going to give you some incremental growth in the near term as they ramp up their large Manto Verde mine. And ultimately, if they decide to build the Santo Domingo project, it can take copper production from about 200,000 tons this year to nearly 400,000 tons over the next 4 or 5 years. And so good copper production growth, countries you feel comfortable investing in.
Also Hudbay, good old Hudbay, big production in Latin America, among other things.
Yeah, so Hudbay is actually about 30% gold and 70% copper. That's due to their gold production in Manitoba. And so they've been benefiting from both the record gold prices and these record copper prices, generating really strong free cash flow for the last several quarters. That's expected to continue. And the other key for Hudbay is they're developing their Copper World project in Arizona. Yeah. This one's been stalled in permitting for a long time now, but the climate has changed, and they finally have all the permits in hand to build this. They have a strong partner with them at the table, and so we expect them to start construction on that as early as next year, and that gives them a next leg of growth.
Who is their partner there? Can you remind us?
It's Mitsubishi.
Oh, yeah. And just finally, First Quantum, there does seem to be a prospect of the huge Panama mine reopening.
Definitely. And look, there's still certainly risk and uncertainty around this, and I would frame it as a risk-reward play. However, the government is undergoing an environmental audit of the mine right now, which we expect to be finished in the first quarter of next year, at which point they'll kick off formal negotiations with First Quantum. And, I think that, again, the climate seems like it could be shifting somewhat in that country, and we could be looking at potential for it to restart next year sometime, which obviously would be a pretty big catalyst and pretty meaningful for First Quantum.
Thank you very much, Sam. Really appreciate it. Sam Crittenden, mining analyst at RBC Capital Markets. Okay, we're going to switch to gold after this. Artemis Gold plans to speed up the expansion of its Blackwater mine in BC. And analysts say there could be a takeover in the offing because this huge mine is a rare beast. We'll have more after the break. Artemis Gold plans to speed up the expansion, excuse me, of its Blackwater mine in central British Columbia. The goal is increasing output to 500,000 ounces a year. Now, the company says this will make Blackwater into one of the 3 biggest single gold mines in Canada. We're joined by the chairman, Stephen Dean. Thank you very much indeed, Stephen. He's founder and executive chair at Artemis. Great to talk to you once again. Tell us, what production are you at right now?
Well, we've guided to 275 to 300 odd thousand ounces at the moment for 2025. Andy, and we're guiding for we'll issue guidance in January for 2026.
And how, if this plan goes ahead to expand the mill, etc., how soon would you hope to get to 500,000 ounces a year?
Well, construction is going to take a couple of years. Major construction will start mid-year. Early works for the EP2, as we call it, expansion, will commence in the first half. And so a couple of years of construction. So the second half of 28, we'll see the plant ramp up, and a full year of production in excess of 500,000 ounces a year in 29.
BMO says you're a rare commodity, a rare beast, a mine of this size, or if you got to 500,000 ounces, one of the few mines globally not held by a big, large-scale producer. So there is some takeover speculation.
Yes, I've read that, Andy, and it's always nice to be admired from afar. The good news is that if that should happen in the future, we will, as management, dictate how and when that will happen, because we own just under 40% of the company, and that puts us in a rather unique position as well.
Would you go for one of these zero premium takeovers that poor old Mark Bristow espoused?
Why would we, Andy?
And of course, Mark Bristow, I say poor old, he's a legend in the mining industry. Why would you?
He is indeed.
Yeah. Were you surprised to see him leaving Barrick? I mean, you can't stay in a job forever, I guess.
No. I think it's healthy to have a new senior management after a period of tenure. I myself, by the way, stepped down as CEO this year and enjoying the role as executive chair and supporting our management team.
You remind us what company you headed up.
Sorry, say that again.
Sorry, you stepped down. Oh, from the role at Artemis.
From Artemis.
Yeah, of course. That's interesting. Yeah, but you couldn't quite just go chairman. You couldn't quite just go attending meetings and having agreeable lunches. You had to still get involved in the day-to-day management.
Well, it's my baby.
Okay.
So, and we, as I said earlier, we have a pretty significant shareholding, so it's nice to stay in touch.
40%, you said, insiders.
Just under 40, yeah.
Okay. So one possible roadblock here, or possible delay, is getting more electricity, and you hope to hear approval for that next year?
BC Hydro and the provincial government, because it's a Crown utility, of course, have indicated fairly directly that we will have the power. But of course, we would like to see that formalized, and we expect that to be achieved in the first half of next year. What
do you need the power for? Is it mostly for the mill? And I guess there's multiple reasons why you need lots of electricity.
Correct. There are, but it's mostly, you're right, for the mill. We need about another 50 or 60 megawatts of energy coming down that pipe from on our transmission line.
And I think we have some footage of the mine. So is it just a big old open pit mine, straightforward?
Correct. You can see in the picture right now. That's it. Foreground is the mill, but on the left side, up in the distance, is the open pit.
Right. And what kind of countryside is it? Is it very isolated? Is there much in the way of population around there?
Well, it's in the Caribou, Andrew, and so it's been the heart and homeland of the BC forestry industry, and there's probably 5 or 6 or more towns that really were founded by the forestry industry in central British Columbia over the last 100 years or so. Forestry industry is in somewhat of a decline, and there's lots of mill closures there, and we're benefiting from that because we're picking up a lot of very, very talented and skilled people to retool and come across to the mining industry.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's been they've had a rough go, obviously, in the forest industry in that part of the world. And tell us the trucks. What's the biggest trucks that you're using to carry material? What's the tonnage?
Those trucks in the footage there are 275-ton trucks. They're some of the biggest in the industry.
That's fascinating. Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? Do they have a diesel and electric drive? Is that right? The wheels are actually driven by electricity?
Those units are combustion engines only, but Caterpillar are well advanced in particularly a hybrid version of that truck, and they are deployed in a couple of mines on a trial basis at the moment. But we expect over the next 2 or 3 years to convert to either a fully electric or a hybrid unit, which will take advantage of our low energy costs, which is one of the big drivers to our low costs of production.
The electricity being pretty cheap, hydroelectricity?
Correct. BC Hydro and British Columbia enjoy some of the lowest tariff energy in the world. And the bonus, of course, too, is that it's green power.
Stephen, we better go. Thank you very much. Always good talking to you.
Likewise. Happy holidays.
You too. Stephen Dean, founder and executive chair at Artemis Gold. Okay, we've been talking a lot about the data center build out, but in some cases, local opposition is building in the United States. Of course, the big AI companies, internet companies, investing hundreds of billions of dollars in these data centers, but they use vast amounts of electricity, and they also have other environmental effects. For one thing, I'm looking at Investors Business Daily has the story, but if you look at a site called Net Zero Insights, which advocates renewable energy, they use a lot of water, and that's an issue in dry parts of the U.S. and, of course, a lot of parts of America, especially in the Southwest, are short of water. They will need upgrades. They'll be churning over equipment and producing vast amounts of e-waste, replacing servers every 2 to 3 years. And this is an interesting one. There's going to be a constant hum from these centers. Network switches, air conditioning, industrial cooling fans. This can create sound levels comparable to a leaf blower. It depends how close you are to the leaf blower. And of course, we do hear that persistent noise in the background is bad for your health. But the big problem is skyrocketing electricity rates. And both Democratic and Republican politicians have taken up that cause because there's a tussle going on. They need so much power that they have been helping to push up electricity prices across the United States. So this is going to be a vast outlay if it follows through in anything like the proposed scale. But this growing bipartisan opposition in some communities could delay the rollout. Thank you very much indeed for watching Commodities. The close is up next.